Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Command Point. I am Shane, and I am joined here, of course, by Ryan. Ryan, how's it going?
It's going great. I've been having a lot of fun playing Kill Team recently.
Me too, Ryan. We've been
hmm
playing the Nightmare teams from the new box.
hmm
How are you liking the Nemesis Claw?
I, Shane, I love this team so much.
Yeah.
I think they're my favorite team to have come out this edition. Um, every time I put them on the table, I've actually only been able to play them like 3 times, but like every single time I'm playing this team, what's the song from the Oppenheimer movie? It's like, can you hear the music or something? Like that.
I don't
That's
know. I
the
haven't seen Oppenheimer.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, those of you who have seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. Can you hear? I think it's Can You Feel the Music? That's the song that I feel going through my head when I'm playing this team. There's just so many like cool plays that you can set up with them. I love them so much. They're my favorite team.
Okay. So what about them have you been enjoying, I guess? Aside from I know you like the general aesthetic.
Oh yeah. I mean, like aesthetics aside, lore aside. I mean the prescience tokens, the ability to skip your own activations and the ability to deny your opponent their activations is just so freaking good.
Hmm.
Um, like I had a game last night against Kasserkin where I had multiple prescience tokens and I was able to just skip activations and just wait out my opponent. Um, and it was just like it felt so strong, like that I'm questioning if it should get nerfed already.
Really?
Honestly, yeah. I mean, like
Wow.
this
Okay.
is against Kasserkin on Into the Dark against a
Well,
elite team that's
Kasserkin.
very hard to shoot. So
Yeah, well, they are supposed to be the elite killers. So,
yeah. So I mean, if they can't kill this elite team, maybe there's something that has to be looked at. But yeah. Until then, I'm having a great time playing them.
yeah, I mean, the team looks awesome. I definitely want to give them a spin. I haven't really played them much at all, but I love my elite teams.
hmm
It's interesting, I guess, to see like because I think they have very good answers into a lot of stuff. So it's kind of like going at it from the perspective of the before times where it was like elites are just incapable of being good.
Right.
And now I have I think a pretty good elite team. Um, and it's hard to decide yet. I mean, without having played them at like an event, I can't really like talk about it much. But I have played Mandrakes in an event now, which is we're going to talk about that today.
Yeah.
Mandrakes, I'm having a lot of fun with Mandrakes, Ryan. They are
hmm
just little freaks. I love them.
There was a meme you had sent me the other day of uh what was it? It
Oh,
was the Harlequin one. How did it go?
yeah,
I'll I'll
it's
I'll
the
find it and I'll cut it and put it in the podcast here if you're watching on YouTube.
yeah, it's like those memes where it's like Princess Diana died on like this
Whatever
date, and
date,
then like
yeah.
the day after, like some ridiculous person was born, and it says "Welcome back, Princess Diana."
Yeah,
But it's Void Dancers died on like March 26th, whenever the last data slate came out, and then
right.
Mandrake's born like 2 weeks later, and it says "Welcome back, Void Dancers."
Yeah.
Because the joke being, Mandrakes feel like the reincarnation of Void Dancers, which is really appropriate and fitting considering Void Dancers were just gutted in the last data slate. So, and I think they evoke a lot of the same feelings from opposing players. At least that's how I felt playing them at the Chimera Gaming tournament over in Ontario that I just went to this past weekend. They're a very frustrating, annoying, evil little elf team. And that's kind of like the niche that Void Dancers filled for a while. So I don't know. Feels
Yeah.
right.
So that's how your opponents or how people playing against both of those teams feel. Do
Hmm.
do you feel that there's like I don't know any sort of like play patterns or like strengths that like both those teams share or like play styles even, I guess?
Yeah, I don't feel like there is I feel like there's pretty big differences between their play styles and how a Void Dancer player and how a Mandrake player will approach the game. But I do think it's mostly that experience on the other side where, they have the 4-up invulns that can just spike, and then your shooting just sucks. They have the really like long threat ranges where they can just, outmaneuver you and hit you from really far away. Um, they've got that feeling, especially in the Night Fiend with his Oubliex, where you're hitting them, and it's like, well, if they just get if they get the wrong roll, you're just going to lose, and that's kind of evokes the Segarex Jest feeling with Void Dancers when you hit them in combat, and they might just parry you instead. Um, so I don't know. I think there's big differences in the way that they play, and I think that my hunch now is that Mandrakes are a better team than Void Dancers were before the nerfs. Um, and I haven't really fully decided yet, just like how powerful I think they are.
Mm-hmm.
Still kind of in the process of learning that. I still think there's a lot that I can do better with the team after playing them at a tournament. Um, but yeah, I mean, we can get into that as we get deeper into the episode, because right now I just want to give a quick shout out to all of our patrons at the Weird Boy tier that have been joining us lately since we opened that tier up. Specifically, I want to shout out. We've got our 6 Weird Boys right now. We've got Adam Smith, oh man, I'm sorry, Bartosz, Wojcicki. I'm sorry, I'm butchering your name, but I appreciate you. Battle Razor, Jesse and his coffee, Michael Kanamos, and Zach Wisnowski. So thank you guys, all of you, for supporting us. Gonna try to get some more of those TTS bat reps uploaded onto Patreon. So, and if anybody wants to check those out, check out our Weird Boy tier on Patreon, and you'll find some stuff there already. So yeah, Ryan,
Yes.
what do we want to talk about first?
I don't know. I
We
feel
haven't done
like
a
there's
podcast
there's
in
a
a while.
lot that we haven't not done a podcast in a while. Speaking of the Patreon, actually, since you brought it up, I should tell the viewers that if you are listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcast or something, um, we actually make nothing from you listening to it on those apps. So if you're looking to support us, then Patreon is a great way to do it. You can also watch these podcasts on YouTube. So yeah, we used to have the podcast go through Anchor, and Anchor was great. You could do ads and not have like a minimum like listenership quota or whatever they had to meet. Now since Spotify acquired it, it like the listener count that you need is egregious, and it really sucks for like small time podcasts like us. So yeah, if you guys enjoy the podcast, I strongly urge you guys to consider watching these on YouTube instead, where Shane and I actually do get something out of doing podcasts. But yeah, so I think we should talk about. I guess we can just start with the tournament that you played in this past weekend. Kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah, lay it out for us.
Yeah, so I wanted to take the new Mandrakes to a tournament. And there was up in just a few hours north of us in Kitchener, Ontario. I had to cross the border into the Canadian wilds once again, which I haven't done in about a year.
Yeah.
And first of all, shout out to everybody, the organizer, the people who are part of the Kitchener scene, really cool people. Um, James, the organizer, puts on pretty regular events up there. So if you live in the Ontario area and you want to play Kill Team, head over to Chimera Gaming. They're really friendly people, and there's very good players there. So first and foremost, just a shout out to them. And there's a host of other Kill Team events that go on in Ontario. So if you live in Canada near the border, you have a lot of ways to play Kill Team. So that's pretty cool. But they ran their tournament on what was it, the 28th or something, 29th. It was a few days ago now. And I wanted to play Mandrakes, so we had a pretty good showing. I think we had 16 players, 4-round event. So we had a pure Swiss, which was cool.
Yeah.
And going in, I was playing a bunch of Mandrakes in the past few weeks, both in person and on Tabletop Simulator. Just kind of getting a feel for the team. And I'll be honest, Ryan, I don't play a lot of elf teams. I've never really been like, I've never, none of these elf teams have ever like captured me really. It's just, I've tried and it just hasn't ever
Yeah.
worked.
Like you tried with Corsairs, you tried with Hand of the Archon a little bit.
Yeah,
But I mean
just couldn't get
Mandrakes,
into it.
yeah,
But yeah,
the Mandrakes are
Mandrake, they're awesome. They're
mhm,
like the, and I was excited for them because I played Mandrakes quite a bit last edition, but it
yes.
was totally different back then. Um, but to see like a new Mandrake team, I was like, oh, this is kind of like weird and dark and cool. Like maybe I can get into that. And the play style of the team is very disruptive. So I've always said I don't really like playing like really fragile teams where I lose my models quickly. And my experiences have told me playing miniature games, not just kill team, it's not that I like tanky things. I like things that are hard to kill, and something can be hard to kill without being tanky. Um,
Hmm.
and I think mandrakes in particular can be very, very hard to kill and remove. Um, their models themselves are, they're 8 wounds, 5 up in vuln. Um, nothing special. No feel, no pains or anything. But they have a lot of abilities and synergies that kind of work through that allow you to that allow these models, I guess, to feel really hard to shift and hard to deal with, whether it's through staying far away in a way where they can hurt you but you can't hurt them, or saying you can't activate this guy, or saying you can activate this guy but I get to activate my guy first. Um, and just all these little things, and like I kill you and then I pay a CP and I heal back to full health. And it's felt really satisfying piloting this team personally. Um, and yeah, so I mean, going in, I didn't have a lot of practice into elite teams. I had a couple games, and it felt like somewhat of a tough matchup. And then I had a lot of practice into mid-range teams. I had one practice game, I think, into like a melee horde, and I had zero practice games into a shooty horde. So I was terrified of playing a shooty horde. I was a little bit afraid of elites, and I felt pretty comfortable into like the mid range and melee hordes. Um, and looking at the list of factions that were being taken to this tournament, I saw first of all I saw Pathfinders, which terrified me.
Yeah.
Um, Horrifying thing to see for me as a Mandrake player. I just feel like Mandrakes, they're an innately 2 APL team. They don't have a comms buff. The way they get 3 APLs, one of their specialists, the Chooser of the Flesh in particular, ventures out and kills something in melee. And if he does that, then you can basically make one of your other operatives 3 APL, but it's for the whole game. So that's nice, but it feels like a little bit unreliable. It's hard to like guarantee, especially if your opponent's aware of it, even with the really long threat ranges. So I got a little worried that if I played against a shooty horde like that, that they could sort of space out and not let me get those big kills and just whittle me away and trade. And I'll say now, I didn't have to play against a shooty horde at this tournament. The Pathfinders went 3-1, and I dodged them, um, which was very nice. But I did open up the first round of the tournament playing against Intercession on open board.
Same thing.
Yeah, and we wound up on loot. And my
Okay.
opponent, his name is Barry, really cool guy. Um, I haven't played against Intercession in a while, like in general, let
Yeah.
alone like with this new team. Um, and I will say going in, seeing loot made me feel a little bit better. I think normally Mandrakes don't love loot, but in an elite matchup, you sort of can deal with it a little bit better. So basically my approach was to try and threaten the mid-board objectives with my Dirge Maw. He had one objective on the bottom side so it was a diagonal deployment. And like, it's like, here's the deployments, like I'm down here and he's up here.
Yeah.
And the objectives are like along the middle.
Yep.
And this bottom right objective, he only had one intercessor that could make it there, and it would be with a move dash. So in the first strategy phase, I had my Dirge Maw focus on that guy. So that way, when he activated that operative, I could choose to activate my Dirge Maw first. So when he activated that guy, I activated my Dirge Maw and I used the Paradolic Influence to select one of his operatives that's in shadow and make them injured regardless of any other rules. And I made that guy injured, and all of a sudden, with the -2 inches from injury, he couldn't reach that bottom right objective. And he's then forced to activate that operative, not being able to do
Oh
what he
my
was intending to
goodness.
do. So that gave me a really nice tempo swing. Um, and then he moved one guy up into the mid board near the end of the turn. I think it was one of his assault intercessors. And I had as my last activation, I had my um, Abyssal, who's the guy with like the flame, the good shooting attacks.
Yeah.
I had him pop out and put a Balefire token onto that assault intercessor. So that way, the next whenever I shoot at that guy, as long as that Balefire token's on him and it stays on him until the next time I activate the Abyssal, as long as that Balefire token's on him, my shooting attacks are +1 damage and I have no cover. And my idea was I was going to have the Dirge Maw come out and do the indirect horrifying scream at him. And that next turn, that is exactly what I did. I had the Dirge Maw focus on that guy, so he couldn't go with him until the Dirge Maw went. Um, and I had the Dirge when he went to activate that guy, the Dirge Maw screamed at him and one shot the intercessor.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
because of 5 attacks on twos, um, 3/3 damage, mortal wounds 2, and a reroll from Inescapable Nightmare,
Hmm.
I could pretty reliably hit a pretty big damage breakpoint. I hit all 5. I didn't miss any, and I think I got 2 crits. And he just, I think he actually rolled triple sixes on his saves, which against Mandrakes is really useless.
Yes, that's horrible. Yeah.
Yeah, because of the Soul Strike ability, you want to roll your successful saves are determined by rolling equal to or under your APL characteristic. And I think twice in this tournament, I had opponents roll triple sixes on armor saves and just feel terrible.
That is cursed.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I had that happen with my Dirge Maw. I was able to get a kill in melee with my Night Fiend by kind of hunting down one of his regular intercessors who didn't have a particularly strong melee profile. Um, that plus just really good primary scoring, I was able to clean up this game pretty easily after those first few trades. The Dirge Maw was absolutely the MVP. I think he ended up screaming at another guy and killing him, I think on turn 3 or turn 4. So very, very effective model there. And when you out activate elites, you can set up that combo pretty easily just by
Yeah.
whoever the most forward guy is. You have your Abyssal put the token on him, and then you can have your Dirge Maw come out and scream at him, and then on turn 2, you have the Dirge Maw focus on him, so that guy can't go again until he gets screamed at for a second time if he even survived the first time. So I think one of the takeaways from this tournament, from this game and another game that I played, were that I think Mandrakes are actually quite fine into elites. Um,
Okay.
it's taken me a little bit of getting used to, like how to learn those matchups, but they just can create such free threats. I feel when they out activate that it's hard for the elite team to really deal with it.
Hmm.
But that was the first game. My second round, I was playing against a friend of the pod, George, from who runs the Maple Leaf War Gaming team up there in Toronto, and he was playing his beloved Warp Coven, newly buffed.
Yeah.
And this was a fun one because I've never played George in real life before, but I've played George on TTS like dozens of times. We've been to the same tournaments before, but we just haven't ever gotten paired. So it was really exciting to finally play him. And we ended up on Into the Dark on Secure. We were playing on one of the asymmetrical maps that Dakota made for LVO. Um, so there was 2 objectives in the middle, 2 on my side, 2 on his side. And he actually took a list that was 3 sorcerers and 6 Zangors, which I think was the right call because it meant that I didn't out activate him. If he had taken a rubric, I would have had 1 more body than him, and I think that actually would have made quite a difference in the matchup. Um, and I found those middle objectives really hard to hit and secure on turn 1 because he has three sorcerers that are 3 APL that can just hold out until later in the turn and basically steal that objective out from under me, unless I put multiple guys on. So looking at the map, I was a little nervous. And for my equipment, notably, I ended up taking. I gave all of my basic warriors the blast 1 inch equipment, which costs 2 points. I think it's a soul gem, it's called. But the notable thing about this is that you're on Into the Dark, so it gives you lethal 5 up on all your shooting,
Yeah.
which is really, really good. And my last 2 equipment points, I gave my chooser of the flesh a 4 inch dash. Basically, I add 1 inch to his dash characteristic. Um, and just with the intent of being able to get those big slingshot charges with my chooser. Um, but yeah, and I went for a really aggressive turn one. One of the objectives was in a small hallway on the left side of the board where both the doors were really close to the objective. It was just a really tiny hallway. And I had put my Dirge Maw on engage, and I teleported the Dirge Maw up against the door that was closer to his side in that hallway, and I put him on guard. So this is a common thing that I found are misunderstanding about Mandrakes is on Into the Dark. So normally when you use the Shadow Passage ability, whether it's on Open or Into the Dark, you're not allowed to make shooting attacks until for the rest of the turning point with that operative. But it is worth noting that going on guard counts as a shoot action, but it's not a shooting attack. So you can teleport against a door on Into the Dark and go on guard, and then when they open the door, you can hatchway fight them.
Okay, yeah.
And so I put my Dirge Maw right up against this door and put him on guard. Now, first things first, in hindsight, the Dirge Maw is not the guy that I should have done. I should have had doing this job. It should have been probably my Night Fiend or maybe
Yeah.
one of my warriors, the chooser, somebody with better melee who isn't such a crucial operative. But I put my Dirge Maw against the door, and the idea being he's going to open the door with his sorcerer, and then I'm going to hatchway fight. And if I live, he's going to want to fight me again, and at that point, I can pay a CP and fight first.
Oh, okay.
So, unfortunately, he ended up killing my Dirge Maw. I did a lot of damage. I think I left him on like 3 wounds. Um, but in hindsight, I was looking at it like, why did I think that was going to work? Like, there's no way 13 wound sorcerer is not going to get killed by my guy in melee, even if I'm the attacker. It's just really unlike I need to get 3 hits through. Uh, so that's never going to happen. But I did bring him down pretty low. And like I predicted, him out activating me, he was able to get those middle objectives. Even like I couldn't set up in a way to get it, so I had to go down 4-2 on primary turn one. But I noticed that on the other side of the board, that middle objective was kind of like in a room by itself, and we both had doors going into that room. It's like a big square room. And he had his sorcerer against the door, kind of at an angle, and 2 Zangors directly next to the sorcerer within 1 inch of the sorcerer, both of them. And so I put both of my Mandrake warriors, 2 of my Mandrake warriors, the blast profile against the doorway on my side. And then next turn, and before I did that, I threw my Night Fiend into the room within 6 inches of all of them. So that way, whenever he activated one of those operatives, my Night Fiend could roll, and on a 3-up or with a sorcerer on a 4-up, he would have to pick somebody else to go. So this actually ended up working exactly as I wanted it to, because he tried to activate somebody on that side of the board, and my Night Fiend denied it. And then he tried with the other 3 Zangors, and I rolled 3-ups every time. My Night Fiend denied it every time, and he had to activate on the other side of the board, which was great because then I activated one of those warriors. He walked up at the angle to hit his sorcerer and blasted the sorcerer and the 2 Zangors, killing one of the Zangors, bringing the sorcerer down to like 1 wound. I think I got like 3 crits on him with the lethal 5. And I think I did 3 damage to the other Zangor. And this was brutal enough, but then he tried to activate them again. Night Fiend denied them again. He had to activate on the other side, and then my other guy with Blast came up and did the same thing.
Dude,
And we killed all of them.
that Night Fiend's ability,
And it's unreal.
it's yeah, this is the Harrowing Whispers one. It is
Yes,
so strong, Shane. Like,
it came up at this tournament a lot. I mean,
I
I can't
bet.
think of a
I bet it
moment
did.
where it was that impactful, like to that degree as it was in that game. Um, but it was huge there. The bad point is that on the other side of the board with that little hallway, I was kind of getting wrecked over there. Um, and I had to, at one point, I charged a Zangor and just completely whiffed, and the Zangor killed me. I was able to get a couple more blasts on that side of the board just because that hallway was so like congested between the like I was able to get another 1 inch blast. I think my Abyssal got a blast off, and we were able to whittle down his models. And actually, by turn three, both George and I only had 3 models left each on the board. But in those moments, because his Zangors, I think were all that was left. He had 3 Zangors, and um, I had 3 Mandrakes, obviously. And in those later stages, especially in Into the Dark, Mandrakes are just gonna like do a lot better because they can control the board. They can outmaneuver you so easily. Um, and it's Zangors. They only have so many ways to hurt. They can only really hurt you by charging. And I have my 1 CP fight first. Um, and I just sort of cleaned up after a very bloody turn two where I thought I was going to lose, and ended up winning that game. And I think a lot of it, like playing Warp Coven now after the buffs, they're definitely a much better team.
Hmm.
But I think that they still have some fundamental issues. Like they are really bad at scoring tac ops.
Yeah,
Um,
I have their page pulled up here. Their archetypes are not great security and recon for a elite to, I guess, like semi-elite team.
yeah,
Not really that great.
you can live with those if you have a good faction tac op, but Warp Coven just doesn't.
Hmm.
They really their faction tac ops are awful. And against me, George opted to go recon. And I guess I should say at every game this tournament, I took faction tac op one, I took recover item, and I took career. Um, and I never deviated from that. Although if I played a horde, I would have gone into seek and destroy. And there was a couple games where I thought about going seek and destroy where I
Hmm.
didn't. But the faction tac ops and the recon tac ops were really good for me at this tournament.
So you said that
Which
you
yeah.
didn't have to face off against any shooty hordes.
Mhm.
So what would you have done differently had you had to face a shooty horde, for example, like Tau?
I probably would have gone seek and destroy with Robin Ransack and Route, probably.
Okay.
Either route or eliminate guards, depending on the mission. And I would have gone Death from Darkness, the faction tac op one, where you charge out of shadow into shadow and kill a guy.
Yeah.
That one is very easy. Even against elites, I was taking that and getting it no problem.
Hmm.
And recover item is pretty good when you can teleport in the middle of the board.
I would hope
And
so.
courier is pretty good when you can teleport to the other
Teleport
side of
to,
the board.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm starting to sense a theme here.
yeah, they're quite good at that. Um, But yeah, like this game was notable because it kind of devolved into a bloodbath because of a weird thing that I did on turn one that was really needlessly aggressive. And I don't like playing games that turn into that. It worked out for me, but it felt like, we were both out on our feet by turn three, and it just kind of like I sort of outlasted just barely.
Uh-huh.
I like to play games that are very controlled, where I'm in control and I have like the tempo the whole way through. That was like we went 12 rounds, George and I, in this game. It was brutal, and there's another game in this tournament where this happens again.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but it's not the next game. The next game I was paired into. His name is Max. He was playing Nemesis Claw.
Ooh, okay.
Um, and yeah, so Ryan, you have been playing Nemesis Claw. So
Mm-hmm.
you're probably excited to hear about this.
Yeah, I am.
Um, So he was 2-0 at this time. He had actually Max is the reason I think I didn't have to play Pathfinders because I think he beat Pathfinders on round two.
Okay.
Um, Now that being said, he came in and I was a little bit afraid because my only game against Nemesis Claw so far was against you, Ryan, where it was a bloody game and I almost lost that game. So unlike that game, we were playing on open board and we were playing on capture. So Mandrakes really like capture. I think against elite teams less so. I probably would prefer loot, but it's
Yeah.
kind of okay. In this game, this is one of the games where like kind of everything went my way. Um, there was one mistake. I think Max was he struck me as a pretty solid player, but there was one mistake he made on turn one where it just kind of cascaded everything kind of away. So for starters, in the pregame, he actually opted to go with the missile launcher heavy gunner, which he had been taking in his other games to pretty good effect. He was getting a lot of blasts off, and he took it versus me. And to start the game, first of all, he ran his Fearmonger up onto a right flank objective and put the poison down on it.
Yep.
And I kind of just said, all right, well, I guess I won't go over there.
Pretty standard
Um,
opening, yeah.
yeah. And then on the left side middle objective, I'm thinking about running a guy there, but I'm looking and I see he has his Ventrilocar waiting on that flank.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that feels like a trap. So I'm just going to wait on
It
that.
was, yep.
Um, and so I run my Night Fiend. So I start grabbing like my back 2 points, um, and I run my Night Fiend up onto the oil rig in the middle of the board, and he runs his missile launcher up with. He moved dashes the missile launcher up within 2 inches of the Night Fiend, kind of contesting one of my objectives. Um, and right away I'm like, oh, my chooser is going to dash 4 inches and activate. We're going to use infiltrate to flip him to engage, and he's going to charge the one guy on your team that he can kill in one go.
Yep.
And that's exactly what he did. And right off the
Jeez.
bat, I started with 2 Soul Harvest tokens. And then once he ran out of activations, he had to run the Ventriloquist car up onto the left flank in front of that middle objective. And I had my Abyssal come out, put the Balefire token on him. I had the Dirge Maw move dash out and stand in front of him. And then I had another guy go out behind the Dirge Maw, blocking the door of the Octarius building, effectively making it so that on that flank, there was nobody that could come and help him.
Okay.
It was going to be that Ventrilocar on the flank alone with the Dirge Maw and that other Mandrake. And then in the middle of the board, my Night Fiend is within 6 inches of his Screecher and within 6 inches of his Skin Thief. So turn two comes, I have the Dirge Maw focus on the Ventrilocar, so the Ventrilocar is just not going to go. Because now that I have a Soul Harvest token, I can save it and have when the Ventrilocar activates, the Dirge Maw can go first, scream at him. Well, first use the Soul Harvest token to be 3 APL, scream at him, and if he's alive, charge and fight and kill him. So the Ventrilocar is just dead out of the game. He's not doing anything.
Yeah.
And it becomes a little bit of a problem because he goes to activate his Skin Thief, and I roll the 4-up with the Night Fiend. And then he goes to activate his Creature, and again I roll the 4-up on the Night Fiend.
I hate this model so much, Shane.
So that was pretty lucky. So I think he opts to activate his... Can't remember who it was that he went with. I think it was his Fearmonger. Yeah, his Fearmonger came around, charged one of my guys. I had my guy pay to fight first, and I think the Fearmonger actually ended up killing him regardless. Took a lot of damage, and then he went to throw his bomb, and then I reminded him that, and I left this part out in turn one, actually, when I was going over it. But the spot where my Night Fiend was, my Shade Weaver had thrown the smoke grenade right on top of him.
Okay.
So he wanted to throw that grenade that the Fearmonger has, and he had forgotten that I had a smoke down on the ground there. And or I don't know if he forgot or if it was a moment of like, wait, that smoke grenade stays to the next turn, because a lot of people have been really caught off guard by that.
Yeah, because it's not. I think because like we keep referring to it as a smoke grenade, and it's not, because the smoke grenade does go away after one turn. This is an ability that does not move until either the model who put it down dies, or when the model moves that token. So I think that's probably where it's like closest thing to compare it to would be a smoke grenade, but it's actually way better.
It's way better. So yeah, that stayed there, and he wasn't able to get a shot off. So he just used his last APL to put another Terror Chem token on my back objective that he had just charged onto. Um, so I think at this point I was able to just start picking off his models. He did get a proclivity for murder double charge off with a screecher, I think it was.
Okay.
Um, and I want to say my Night Fiend survived it with his Oubliex and got a kill or something. Eventually, the Ventriloquar on the left just got screamed at and died. Yeah, I don't even think I needed to use the charge fight. Um, and the Chooser died eventually. I know the Chooser was killed by the Screecher, which I was hoping to have the Chooser live, but you can't get that much. Um, and I just sort of slowly picked off the rest of his models, and it was like a very clean. We both played really quickly. That was like one of the fastest games of Kill Team I think I've ever played. Um, and it was just like a really clean win for the Mandrakes.
Mm-hmm. So this was Max, you said was your opponent's name.
Yes.
What was his roster? Obviously he took the Visionary. You said he took a
Yep.
missile launcher, the
Uh,
Ventriloquar, the Fearmonger, the
and then he
Screecher,
had Yep, and then the Skin Thief. So he
Skin Thief.
had all
Okay.
the melee guys. He basically what he swapped out was the regular gunner for the heavy gunner.
Right, okay.
And if he hadn't put the missile launcher so close, I think it would have been a very different game, and I think he would have had much more of a chance. But I think that was just the one mistake. And even said like going in, because I think he played against Mandrakes in his first game, and he just knew, all right, just don't let the chooser ever get a kill. And then he just like he had like a brain fart for like 5 seconds and put the guy up there, and then just
Yeah.
instantly lost him. Because if the chooser gets kills, I mean, against an elite team, that's just game kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so that was my round three, and then my round four. Wildly, the only other 3-0 left was playing Blades of Cain.
That is
Um,
okay.
yeah, and his name is Andrew. We actually met him the last time we went to Toronto for a tournament, and he was playing like Craft World back then. So
Oh,
now that
okay.
he was playing, yeah, now that he's playing Blades of Cain, it's
He's
like
got
let's
a
come.
real kill team now to play with.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
pretty cool.
And he was doing very well with them. He was 3-0, obviously, so it kind of goes without saying. But going in, I was like, what do I feel about this matchup? Because it's another elf team. They have one less body than me. They're all 3 APL. Um, they don't have AP, so like they don't really care about the fact that I have invulns. And they're very tricksy. So are they trixier than me? And this game was a lot more similar to my game versus George in round two than it was to my other games. So he did a very weird thing on turn one, or on deployment, I guess I should say. So we're on open board again on secure for the finals. And I've deployed all in conceal. And so he said, oh, I'm just going to put some guys in engage then, because he was attacker. So he's deploying left or last. And he put a Dire Avenger. So he had a Scorpion behind a barricade out in the open, and he put a Dire Avenger on engage next to him. And he said, maybe this is dumb, but I'm going to put this guy here. We do scouting, and he has me go first, and I have my infiltrate, so I can
Yeah.
flip an order. And I'm like, do I do this? I'm like, is this a trap? Am I being played right now? Because I've got my Abyssal, who's got the 2-inch blast, 5 shots.
Yep.
Um, but he's kind of like in a weird spot. Like I put other guys in front of the Octarius door so he can't get through it. Because he was in a million years, I didn't think my Abyssal would be my first activation. So I popped the 1 CP tactical ploy to let my guy move through terrain as if it's not there.
Mm.
And he phases through the wall and comes out, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna blast these guys. And I killed one of them. I think I killed the Scorpion, and then the Dire Avenger survived on like 2 wounds. And he immediately responded. He had the Dire Avenger activate. He used the technique to make it so that he wasn't injured. And he moved and shot me and then paid a CP to shoot me again. And my Abyssal lived barely, I think on like 2 wounds as well. Um, and then I had my Shade Weaver come out and throw a smoke grenade on the Abyssal to like make sure he was safe for the rest of the turn. Um, and I I set up a bunch of guys on objectives. I was able to get a 3/3 on secure, which I did not think I was going to do because his models are really fast, and 3 APL. And then we go into turn 2, and I've killed one of his guys. I feel really good. Um, I you know I've got the activation advantage. I'm realizing if it's a 8 model team of 3 APL models. Anybody that my chooser kills is going to get me 2 Soul Harvest tokens. Um, so I use my ploy for the rerolls. I use my ploy for the free dash, and I'm like, all right, let's have my or he has his. I think he wins initiative on turn 2, and he has his leader who has the Just to Scratch equipment charge my leader. So first of all, my leader rolls to try and stop him from activating because he's within 6, and he fails. So his leader charges me. I pay a CP for my leader to fight first. I strike him with a normal. He decides to take it. He hits me for 6. I fail my Oubliex. I crit him for 6. He uses his Just to Scratch. And then he crits me again, and I fail my Oubliex again, and my leader's just dead. And I'm like, oh, that's not good. And then he's like, oh, well, you know what? Let's just do the indirect shot technique for my third. It's probably not going to kill this guy because I have a guy in cover there that he can shoot. And his leader just one-shots the other Mandrake with his indirect shot. So I'm like, oh god, I just lost 2 guys. I'm like, all right, this is okay though. I've got my chooser. So I have my chooser do the dash and charge the full health Banshee behind his leader. And I roll, and I get 1 hit out of 4, and he uses Contempt to make it so that I can't reroll.
Oof.
And then he uses the technique to parry first, and then he kills my chooser.
Oh my god.
And then he activates that Banshee and charges the guy in the smoke and kills him. And I'm like, oh my god, everything is going horribly wrong. Am I going to lose this game? Just everything just fell apart all at once.
That's insane.
But I'm like, all right, it's okay, because that Dire Avenger on the left that double shot me, my Dirgemon's focusing him, so that guy's gonna die. I've got other dudes back here that can just kill his leader right now, hopefully. I pick off a couple guys here, there. There's like a little fight on the right side of the board. A Banshee dies, a regular Mandrake dies. The Dirge Maw kills that Dire Avenger on the left, and then I leave the leader alive that he left there in my backline, so that I could just have, because next turn I could just have the Dirge Maw focus him. And turn 2 was just bloody. And again, top of turn 3, we both have 3 models left on the board. One of his 3 is the Dirge Maw. One of my 3 is the Dirge Maw. One of his 3 is the leader. And they're like isolated on a side of the board. So the Dirge Maw just focuses him. So I'm like, I've got the tempo thing right there. So like I feel really good about that. Like I'm just gonna kill his leader no matter what at this point. And he can't do anything about it. And I save a CPs that way. Wherever he fights me with the other guys, I'm going to be able to pay to fight first. And I lose 1 guy because I have to charge the guy and hope I kill the Banshee. I hope I don't whiff, basically, and because if I whiff, he contempts, and then I can't reroll, and then he kills me. That's what happened. But I did like 6 damage to a Banshee, but he contempted and killed me. I kill his leader, and then I have another guy go and kill that other Banshee, and then he's got 1 guy left, I think, like a Dire Avenger. And yeah, I pretty much just was able to kind of clean up and score out for round 4 just because I had a couple guys left and he had nothing. And like the position you're in at that point, a lot of the time you're in turn 4 with like nobody left, and there's like certain objectives that are just too far for your 2 guys that are left to grab. But with Mandrakes, you don't have to worry about that because you can just teleport one of them and take a point.
Right.
So yeah, I mean the team was able to even in the slugfest games to come out on top, especially with the Dirge Maw being such a huge like tempo piece and the Night Fiend being a huge tempo piece and just their ability to kind of disrupt games. But yeah, shout out to Andrew. Andrew played very well in Blades of Cain. I'm more convinced, I think, every day as I see really good Blades of Cain players pilot the team that they are actually quite decent. I think they're at the very least they're balanced. I don't think they're underpowered anymore. They've just got a really good toolbox, especially with Contempt. Like just knowing whenever you attack them that if you roll bad, they're just going to pay a CP and you're stuck with your bad roll. It's such a, especially when you're like playing a model that's like relying on a reroll to be like kind of consistent. That's just like a stab in the heart. It's
Mm-hmm.
brutal.
Mm-hmm. Wow, great.
But yeah, yeah. So I went 4-0 with Mandrakes, but it felt weird. It felt sloppy. I definitely think I could have done some things differently. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean, it was your first run with them. So after the tournament, how many games have you played with the Mandrakes?
I want to say like 15 or 16 now.
15 or 16, okay. And have you dropped any?
I have not dropped a game yet.
Yeah, so you're 15-0 with this team. Um, Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's crazy. Um,
They feel really strong. Again, though, I think their weakness has to be those like shooty hordes, and I have somehow I haven't played against one.
yeah, you'll have to hit up
Um,
Jonah. Be like, hey, come through
yeah,
with those Pathfinders.
yeah, our local Pathfinder. The Pathfinders terrify me. Um, but yeah, like that game against Andrew, I just wanted to highlight one thing. Like it became like I had this really clear plan for turn one, what I was going to do with like having the Dirge Maw threaten an objective near the end of the turn, and just get like an attrition lead that way. And then he gave me this weird blast, and I was like, I have to take it. And
Yeah,
it just made the game devolve into this just like
just like
messy, like,
trading.
yeah, like
Okay.
we were just trading like haymakers. And I was like, this is not comfortable. I don't think this is how Mandrakes want to be playing. Like, it feels weird to say. I almost think it was the wrong play to to do that blast. Maybe it wasn't, but it feels like it was
Uh-huh. Just
because
because of
it
it set up everything that happened after that with all the
yeah,
activations. Very
yeah,
interesting.
really, really strange.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I guess diving a little bit more into this tournament, do you remember who else podiumed, who came in the top three, second and third?
Yeah, so I believe in second place was Max, the Nemesis Call player. He won his final game, I think, pretty handily.
Okay.
And I think in third place was Andrew, the Blades of Cain player. So the whole top four, funny enough, was Mandrakes, Nemesis Claw, Blades of Cain, and then Scouts being piloted by Jason, um, who is a pretty good player up in Ontario.
Okay.
So it was kind of funny to see the top four be all the season three teams.
Yes.
Um, especially because I think especially the Salvation teams have kind of gotten a bad rep for being kind of underpowered, I think.
Yeah. I
And I'm
mean,
not
we've been
yeah.
consistently ranking them at like B and C, I think, in like our tier
Yeah.
list for the Scouts and the Blades of Cain. Um, so I
Hmm.
mean, that's very cool to see. Overall, where do you think the meta is kind of like sitting right now? You know, do you think
I
everybody's just kind of like adjusting to like Mandrakes and Night Lords being out in the wild, or I don't know, do you think
yeah,
there's been an actual like shift away from like commandos, pathfinders, etc.?
I think that we're in like kind of a healthier version of last like pre-data slate, where there's still kind of this rock paper scissors that I'm noticing, um, where you have teams like Pathfinders, who I think are probably the strongest team right now, personally, and you have Mandrakes, who I think are a menace to mid-table teams and I think elite teams as well, but they lose, I think, to Mandrakes. Um, and a team that beats Mandrake or a team that beats Pathfinders is Hierotech Circle, who I think are really good against that playstyle, where Mandrakes kind of are really good at picking off one or two models a turn, rather than killing a bunch of things all at once. And Hierotech, they don't care if you kill one to two models a turn because they're getting back up and they're just trading. But then Hierotech gets murdered by Mandrakes. I mean, it's just the worst matchup ever. So you have this rock paper scissors a little bit, and that's without even going into like I think Gellerpox is really really strong. I think Felgors are really strong. Um, so I don't really know. I think it's a little bit up in the air right now. To me, Mandrakes are still the scariest team in the game, but I mean I don't think that they're unbeatable. Um, and I'm curious to see how like Nemesis Claw and stuff do into all these different teams because I think they have some pretty good play.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I'm excited to see what big tournaments coming up, what kind of results we see. I'm not even sure what big tournaments are coming up, if I'm being honest. Um,
There's going to be Atlantic City Open. That'll be June
yes,
14th through the 16th, I believe. I think that's right.
we'll be there.
Yep, we will be there. So if you're going to Atlantic City, look for us because, well, we'll be easy to find. We'll be the guys playing in the Kill Team tournament.
Yes,
Um,
say hi.
yeah. Well, Shane, I don't think I have anything else for you. Was there anything else that you wanted to finish off on here?
No, just again, shout out to the Chimera Gaming people and the people in the Ontario scene, really good players. We went a year ago, and I remember having a really good time, and it's cool to see in a year how much that scene has grown, not just in like terms of how many new players they have, but I think the level of play is like really, really elevated over in Canada. So really exciting to see the Canadian kill team scene kind of getting better and better. And
Hmm.
like, I'm excited to go to more of their events in the future. I guess
And
on the
speaking of
topic,
their events, yeah, yeah.
yeah. In so Chimera Gaming, that just hosted this tournament, they're hosting a 2-day GT in July. I don't have the actual date off the top of my head, but we'll put it in the description. Um, I think they're trying to get a golden ticket for it. I would be surprised if they don't, just because they've had really, really high regular entrants into their events. So that's coming up in July. So if you are looking for a golden ticket and you're in the Northeast or you're in Canada, wherever, I'm going to be there. I think some of our Rochester people want to be there, and that should be a really good time. And it's a good store. So go check out.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of the Command Point podcast. I hope you guys had a fun time with us recounting Shane's most recent tournament victory with the Mandrakes. Shouts out to all of our supporters over on Patreon. You guys are a big part in what keeps this channel afloat and growing here. So, yeah, we have a lot of fun making these videos and podcasts for you guys. So, um, having you guys help us out along the way is, we're really grateful for it. If you have not already, make sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button on YouTube and like the video. If you have any questions for Shane and I, you can leave a comment down below. Um, I had already mentioned the Patreon, but like Shane was talking about at the start of the video, if you sign up for the Weird Boy tier at $6 a month, you get access to a few other things, namely the TTS, like tournament practice videos. So really high level play available for you to watch over there. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in, and we'll see you all again in the next one.